Welcome to the show, Earth to the Other Side. I'm your host, John Glasspool. Tonight I'm speaking with Belinda Queen B Gonzalez, and she is an astrologer, medium, tarotist. She had 3 near-death experiences, which she claims are all very boring, compares to her OBE, out-of-body experience that she had. And she says she had a walk with God. So I'm very, very curious and interested to hear all about that. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And welcome to the show, Belinda. Welcome to the channel. How you doing tonight?
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
I'm good.
Excellent. Excellent. So when did this all happen? When did the first boring NDE happen?
The first one, I was 18 years old. I lost my father at 15 and I had gotten into drugs pretty heavily. So by 18, I was doing heroin and cocaine, and I died in a hotel room. A friend of mine had just went to the store, and all of a sudden, I'm feeling very, very buoyant and very, very good, but it wasn't good. I'm high good. It was more of a euphoric feeling. Is that the word I want to use? It was like, I'll be honest with you, it was like an orgasmic feeling without being sexual, if that makes any sense. And I just felt really light, and everything was dark. And I was putting my hands out in front of me, although I don't remember seeing hands, trying to feel my way around the room, when all of a sudden my girlfriend walked back in and said, "I forgot my wallet." And she said, "Oh, snap." And saw me there, and they started to try to work on me. And when I followed her is when I saw my body on the floor. And I was like, "Oh, snap." This isn't good. And the next thing you know, I woke up and, with them walking me around the parking lot. So like I said, it wasn't anything, anything, I didn't see Jesus or, any white light at all. But what I did see was light. It looked like light coming from the television, when back in the day when the snow would come on the TV late at night. That's exactly what it looked like a very soft light, but it was very dark. And which leads me to believe that somehow right when you pass, you get what you're expecting. That's what you see. I wasn't expecting much if I did die. I was expecting darkness, and that's pretty much what I got. And but it wasn't anything, that my second one was in childbirth. I had been clean for years already, and decided I wanted to have children with my first husband. And I was 22 years old when we met and got together. And so that was shortly after that had happened. So now this is my second child. And that's when I started hemorrhaging, and I started going into convulsions right after they sewed me up. They gave me the baby, and I was holding him, and I was like, I don't feel good. And I'd be over to my husband, and my mother, started screaming, and I just seen flash bulbs, and then I just popped out of my body. I was looking down at myself, and I could see it looked really like high definition. All of the blood on the floor around the bed, and they were rushing around, and I could see the footprints looked really, for some reason, I really zoomed in on the footprints around the bed. That at that one, though, I could see 2 different places at the same time. Like almost fully, like if I was seeing this room with this eye and this room with this eye, but that I could actually understand both areas. which was that was strange. I could see my mother over here with my ex-husband. He's, you know, on his knees in front of her and holding her hands. And then I'm in the bed over here and they're working on me. They brought in a machine and, you know, they hit me with the paddles 3 times and I brought me back. And, but I don't remember going back into my body or even being back. I mean, I apparently I was back for a little while, but I had gotten a really high fever. As soon as they brought me back, my, you know, fever went up to 105. And so when I did wake up, I was on it's like a water bed mattress, and it's got a hose coming in the top and one in the bottom. And it's got, you know, a machine that puts water through it that's at a regular temperature to keep your temperature down. But during that one, I just remember thinking, I got that same buoyant, euphoric. It's like the fuzziest, warmest blanket you could ever imagine, you know, like being naked in it, you know, just really, it feels really good. And, you know, at that time, I didn't see any white light then either. You know, I wish I wish that was something that I could say, but it really isn't. But I remember thinking, I'm not leaving my kids with those two, you know. And it's strange because a lot of people that I've, you know, heard their stories and stuff, there's not a lot like mine, you know, that they, you know, a lot of people see a white light or something like that. I've never seen a white light all 3 times. But it wasn't my time. So that was at 25 years old is when that happened. And so then my next one was at 35. I had just turned 35. I turned 35 on December 3rd, and this happened on December 18th, 2008. And I had come home late, 15 minutes late. I was out to dinner with my uncle, and this is my home, my house. My kids were on vacation with their father, and I was seeing someone. And I let him stay for a couple of weeks. I told him, you got 2 weeks, you got to go, you know, and his 2 weeks was up, and he got crazy with me. He was saying, you know, you're late, blah, blah, blah. And I had just gotten pulled over actually by a police officer. And I was like, listen, you know, I'm not doing this. Lower your voice. You're in my house, blah, blah, blah. This is like this in this neighborhood, they will call the police. So I put my ticket in my basket and I went in my room, closed the door, locked it, laid in bed. And then I'm waking up to him jimmying the lock. And when I sat up in bed, he had hit me with a phone, the house phone, smashed me in my face with it and broke my nose. And when he broke my nose, we're not really sure. We can't really say if it was the breaking of the nose or if it was me breaking it back into place myself. that severed the main artery in my nose. And so when that was severed, obviously, you know, a main artery with every heartbeat, it's squirting out. So by the time I got to the hospital, it was actually my second round to the hospital. The first time they didn't do, you know, they did an x-ray, but they didn't, an x-ray doesn't show the veins. So when they did the x-ray, they just saw the nose that I had broken it back into place. Doctor said, I don't know if you should be certified or certifiable, but you did a great job, you know, and I crazy glued the skin back on. And And so they sent me home, and then I started talking, and it started squirting. And it was on that trip to the hospital. I was holding a bucket, and that bucket was filling up fast. Got to the hospital. I went to get out of the car. I just got out the car, and all of a sudden I hit the floor. And because we were skidding into the parking lot, there were, people running out. And I just remember seeing them coming to the doors, and then bam. And I kept seeing flash bulbs, like strobe lights.
Oh, yeah.
And that time, I actually tried sitting back into my body. As I'm being pulled out, it felt like from my chest.
Mhm.
Like it was like someone was pulling me, and I was trying to sit back down into myself. And during that time, I actually heard a voice, and it said, "Go back. You have important things to do, and you don't belong here yet." And sorry. And then they medevaced me to a different hospital, because that was a small hospital, and I lost all the blood you can lose except for 1 pint. 1 pint, I would have been absolutely gone, dead. But they were able to save me and fly me to another hospital. And I just remember when they brought me back, when I was actually going, when I was trying to sit back into my body, as this is all happening, I felt like I was drowning as I was dying, and it felt like razor blades. I guess that's what the blood, when you're swallowing and breathing your blood, because I was breathing it. I couldn't, it was just coming out of it. It was in my nose. So as I'm breathing it, I guess that must be what it feels like to drown, like fire or razor blades or something in my lungs. And I just remember that it was very painful. And then all of a sudden, there was no pain. It was that lovely euphoric feeling again. And this time I was just like, okay, this has to be it. I was ready to go. And I wasn't allowed to.
Were you out of body at that point?
Yeah, once I was out, you know when you're out, because the feeling changes. There's no more panic. There's not that urgency, anymore. The only time I felt urgency was when I gave birth, and I was looking at my mother and my ex-husband, and I could see everything happening. I just couldn't leave my children, which is something that I don't hear very often either from other people. A lot of people say that they just want to go. I was not trying to go anywhere. Call it me being a fighter, but I wasn't ready to leave my babies. So, it wasn't an option. I wanted to come back.
Were you already a medium at this point?
I always have had it since I was a child, which is also something that's not normal. But, there was a time during my druggy years that I had lost that. It was like numbing, it just shuts you off. You don't hear the voices. You're not connected to yourself. You're not connected to, spirit. So you don't get the flow. It shuts off the voices, whether you're schizophrenic or not, it just kind of shuts it down. But, there was a lot of times where I did see spirits or hear things, especially when I got really, really high, and I would be, falling asleep or something, and I would hear Belinda, and I'd wake up or get the loud whistling in my ears and things like that,
Yeah,
So,
I've had that loud name call happen
mhm,
during these not during, but after each of these experiences that you had. Did you, because you said, well, first the first one you sort of, you saw, it was quite dark and sort of like
mhm,
the TV white noise type of effect happening because you
mhm.
didn't have any expectations. And then, you had a bit of experience, you die again, you had maybe some different expectations, or was it the same kind of thing for you the
I
second
did
time?
have a different view by that time. I had gained some clarity over the years that I had been, um, back and forth, clean, not clean. And then I had, like I said, I had my first child at 22.
Hmm.
So there, I was ready to be a mom and do all of that. The second one, he was a surprise, but we went back to California and had him, and we did what we do, and but yeah, I was more connected. I was a mom now. Like, I wasn't very mom type before I had my first one. I don't know what I was thinking, you get married, this is what you do, make grandma happy. Grandma wanted great grandchildren. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, she was just over the moon when he was born, the first one. And so the second one, she was really excited too, but she wasn't in California. And that's an interesting story too, because my kids are my father and my grandfather
Oh,
reincarnated.
okay. And
Yeah.
did they talk to you about this?
My oldest one, I didn't know actually until a few years ago.
Okay. So how
When
did you
I
find
saw
out? How did
his,
you find out about each one of them being in?
my second son, the one that I died giving birth to him, actually a few months prior to that, when I was 7 months pregnant, I had a dream. I was walking up these stairs in an old Victorian house, and you know how they have the railing that goes across this way on the next story. So the
Mhm.
stairs go up, and there's railing right here. And there's usually three rooms: the front room, back room, middle room, or bathroom. And so I came up the stairs, and when I turned this way, I remember seeing all the little particles of dust in the air, when light streams into a
Mm,
room.
yeah.
So it was just like a hazy, feel to the whole thing, eerie.
Mhm.
And so I turned around to go to the front room. The door was open, and I saw my grandfather sitting on the bay window, and he was holding a baby on his lap. And he was looking at the baby, bouncing the baby. And I was like, Grandpa, what are you doing with that baby? And he looked at me, and the baby looked at me. The baby had hollowed out eyes. There's no
Oh,
eyeballs.
okay.
And I wasn't so much like shocked or scared or, anything like that. I was just like, that's weird. And they looked at each other, and these two blue lasers came out of my grandfather's eyes and into the baby. And I still didn't know what that meant at that time. And so after I gave birth, um, a few weeks later, my the neighbors had come over to see the baby and stuff. Everyone saw the baby, blah, blah, blah. Everyone went home, and he fed every hour on the hour. This child was a monster. And so I wake up. He actually let me sleep a little bit that night. We had went to bed around midnight. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up to feed him, and he's crying, and he never cried unless he was hungry. And so he's screaming, and I go over to the refrigerator. I get, his milk, put it in the bottle, put it in the microwave, shake it up, and then I test it. Okay, it's fine. I put his bottle in his mouth, and I'm holding the bottle with my chin. And when I open the refrigerator, he's looking at me, his eyes all full of tears, and they're bright blue, just like my grandfather's.
No.
And I was like, uh, his father doesn't have blue eyes. I don't have blue eyes. My great grandmother does, and his father and sister do. But
Mm.
I was just like, that is so strange. I was like, because his eyes were gray up until this point. And so it was just like from midnight to 3 a.m, they turned bright blue. And I was, we woke up the whole neighborhood. Everybody came back over to see the baby that night because they couldn't believe it. But it was really interesting. And after that, when my grandmother met him, because she was unable to travel, she had some heart issues and a pacemaker put in and all that. So when she finally got to see him, he was just barely 2 years old. And my grandmother, when my grandmother met him, he was 2 years old. And she looked at him and said to him, "Tu eres Denny Hogan?" She asked him if he was Denny Hogan, her husband. And he looked at her and said, "Yes, doll."
No.
And yes. And I don't know where he would get doll from. That's definitely out of the 1930s. And definitely my grandfather, because my grandfather used to call her doll all the time.
Wow.
And
That's extraordinary.
Yes. And he died when he had died 2 years prior to that. Exactly.
Okay. And as he got older, did he make any mention of memories of, any connections to your grandfather?
No, not at all. But he does when he looks at pictures, like when he looks at pictures of him, of grandpa, he'll tell his fiance, "Wasn't I a handsome son of a gun?" but like he doesn't remember anything.
Okay.
But he is an eighth houser, which means that there's definitely potential for him to remember. His eighth house is Aquarius, which I believe is your sun sign, and a very psychic sign. It's the second to last sign. It's the kid before the old man. When in astrology, it's the last hurrah.
Okay.
So that you guys are very old souls. And air signs like Aquarius, actually Aquarius is an air sign. Most people don't know that. They think it's aqua, water, but it's not. It's an air sign. And you guys rule the airwaves. And so, psychic ability comes really strong to Aquarius sun signs. You guys are very curious and very knowledgeable about a lot of things, but you know what? I mean, that's what every and anyone who's a mover and shaker, they're the people who think, forward. And it takes that connecting, connecting of the two, like I said, the airwaves and bringing it all together.
When you had your 3 experiences, in each one, did you know, or if you did, when did you have the realization that you were dead?
It was the first one was when I turned around and I saw myself. The strangest thing about seeing yourself outside of yourself, you see yourself from outside of yourself. It's like, okay, you see yourself growing up in the mirror all the time, right? So you don't see what somebody just meeting you sees. You see the little kid that grew up in the mirror. And when you see the little kid growing up in the mirror, you don't look as old as you look to somebody else. Like when I stopped getting carded for cigarettes, I was like mortified. I was like, what the hell? What do you mean you're not going to card me? I look 31? Like, you got to be kidding me, but so when you see yourself from outside of yourself, you see yourself like you're looking at yourself for the first time. And it's very jarring, especially for me.
I've been looking very forward to hearing your story about the OBE, the crazy OBE you had, and during which you say you had a walk and talk with God. So can we have you tell us that story?
Okay, sure. That's the good one. I believe it was 2010. It was somewhere in the springtime, spring to summer.
Okay.
And there was a rare moon. I don't know if it was a blue moon or what it was that night. But I fell asleep. And it's interesting, when I have out of body experiences, I usually know right away, you know, as I come out of my body. But this time I didn't. This time I just all of a sudden was somewhere. And I was actually crouching next to a big oak tree and a headstone. And I was like, where am I? And I look this way, and as far as the eye can see, all the way around is headstones, rows and rows of headstones. And there's a fog, and it's a thick fog, and it's laying on the ground though. And just from here up, I could see the front part of knight's armor in front of all these headstones. And I could see every single rivet and filigree, like definition, everything on the other side. Those are the only words I could use, is high def. It's so intricate and so bright that I could tell the difference of color between the silver and the rivets that were in rose gold and gold, yellow gold, and the filigree, all of the etching. I'll never forget that. It was very, very important that I see all of this. And as I'm looking, I hear a voice, and it was a booming, loud male voice. Tell me to come from around that tree, child. Don't hide from me. And when I come around the tree, there's this figure, and it's just like the outline of a man, or, the outline of a man. But if water took shape, have you ever seen the movie The Abyss? It was like he was made of water, because as I walked over, I could never really see the face. It was just so bright. The light was so bright. And as I approach, I'm like trying to shield my eyes, and I reach up for this hand that's, outstretched to me. And I take the hand. At this point, I know who it is. I don't know how I know, but I knew it was God. And as I take the hand of this 8 or 12-foot huge figure, I felt like it was like a snow globe matter in there. It was just like little galaxies and sparkly and shooting stars and stuff in this hand. And I was just amazed at what I saw. And as we are walking down the path, we all of a sudden are in like a little open patch of, how do I say, a 3D diagram of the universe, our universe. I was really glad to hear that other people had seen that too, because I thought it was just craziness. But so, we wind up in this open clearing of grass, and he waves his hand, and up pops a 3D a 3D version of a universe, a small version of it. And it's all being held together by netting, like a web of, what's it called?
Honeycomb?
Honeycomb. Yeah, honeycomb. And he starts telling me all of these things about the universe, the secrets of the universe, things that I didn't know other people knew until now, you know what I mean? So, you know, he was sharing these things with me. And then when I turn around, he said, now I must go and come back here because I have important things to do. Again, that's being told to me. I'm just like, well, somebody let me know because I'm doing a whole lot of nothing, you know. So I turn around and my father's there. For years, I had forgotten so many things that were told to me. It was like when I came back to Earth, everything just was gone. So as I turn around, I see my father there. My father grabs my hand and God waves a glittery hand, and a tear comes just in the middle of the air, tears open and down and Earth. And I can see, you know, my dad grabs my hand and we just standing up, slide down these stars all the way down to in front of my uncle's house. My mom's, actually my mother's uncle. We get there and we walk hands, and my aunt is cooking garbanzo beans on the stove, and my uncle's sitting there reading the paper, and we go to, so go ahead and for bed. And I go into the adjoining bathroom and there's a walk-in closet in there. And so I go into the walk-in closet. There's only one thing hanging in there, and it's a beautiful nightgown with the peignoir, you know, the robe that goes over it and everything. And so that's the only thing in there, in an oval mirror. And so I go to grab the nightgown, and I don't remember taking my clothes off or anything to put the nightgown on. I just remember throwing it over my head. And as it falls over my body, I look down and I could see blue shining through the you know, through the nightgown. And I went like this and knocked on it. And it was like tink, tink, tink. And I looked into the mirror and I was wearing blue armor, and rays shot out of the chest plate into the mirror, and I blocked my eyes, and I was back. And since then, I couldn't really remember anything that was said to me, hardly at all. It was like everything was just all mixed up into pieces and like a puzzle pieces, and I had to put them back together slowly over the years. So when I found out about my oldest son, that was another moment of I got tunnel vision. That's the word I was trying to remember. I had picked up a picture of my son. It was his ultrasound, the very first ultrasound picture of him. And I had to take a magnifying glass to look at the date. And it was September 8th, my father's birthday. And when I saw it, I just got complete tunnel vision. And I started seeing every single time that I noticed but didn't notice my son doing his mannerisms and saying things that had just went right past me. When my father was an English professor, and when my son was 5, he said, "I love the way the light manifests itself behind the leaves and casts a shadow on the wall."
What?
He was 5. I swear on everything I love. My mother was there. I was like, "Did you hear him? Did you hear that?" Like, she was like, I heard it. I was like, what the was that? I said, "Does that even make sense?" Like, I didn't know if it even made sense. I was like, what the hell?
Wow.
But it was all these little, like when he said, I said, do you want a banana or do you want an orange? And he was like, I prefer, I don't know, any little child that says, I prefer.
Me neither.
No. And all these moments just went like a fast movie reel in my head. And I said, oh my God, how I was a little upset until I remembered about the holograms and how when we die, we can actually leave messages to comfort our loved ones, even when we return. So what we see is a hologram of them.
Mhm.
Many times when I'm speaking to someone on the other side, it's a message left. And what's really strange is how they can talk back to you. You know, how this is a dialogue happening that's already, because it's already been written.
Mhm.
That's why I don't believe in coincidence at all. Every single moment it's already done,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It's already been done, it's already been planned, it's it's just being played out in your own reality.
And probably in multi universes.
And so it was really hard for me to wrap my head around that. And I was a little pissed off at God, because I'm like, I thought we were like here, like, so all these little things that happen, that are pieces of the puzzle that are being, structured, for me to have the full picture like I had at that moment that I walked with God,
Mhm.
you know, are coming together. But it's like, why did you tell me that? Like, I still don't, I'm one of those people where after you tell me why, I want to know, okay, now why this? I'll
Mhm.
never be satisfied. I don't think with the
Yeah.
answer to anything. This universe is one speck,
Yeah.
And every single one means so much. And then within that, you know, it's perfect chaos. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's just it needs to be that. People always go, oh, what if there's a God? Why do these bad, horrible things happen? You know,
Oh
um,
yeah. Yeah. I'm
to
so tired of
children,
that
why
question.
is there war, blah blah blah. I'm like, do you realize that you come here and there's hot, cold, top,
Good, evil.
bottom,
Mhm.
right, left, good, evil, black, white. There's
Polarity.
polarity, and in order for that to work, in order for our planets to float around, there has to be a negative, positive charge.
Mhm.
And without it, none of this exists. And we know before we come here what we're doing. We
Mhm.
know that we're going to have a sacrificial life. We know that we're going to have, I'm going to have a real shitty life this life. I came out with 4 planets in the 8th house, but I do have some really great parts to that. I help other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have good children, so and I have a good husband. These are
Mhm.
things that come out in the chart for me. But everything else is kind of shady. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
friendships and things like that,
Yeah.
um, but that doesn't stop me from trusting or loving or anything like that.
Good.
It is what it is. When you're born, the planets will never be in the same spot for 4,320,000 years.
You were telling me that.
Okay. You are a unique individual. No, so you're a unique individual. Unless somebody would took their first breath right next to you, they will not have the same birth chart. I mean, sure, and have the same planets and same house, but that 1 degree, that one little changes things. It can change the entire house. That 1 degree makes a difference.
Yeah.
When I look at a birth chart and I see where all the planets are, I don't need a book to tell me what this means, what Neptune in the 12th house means, or I see it and I see the picture. Yeah, it took 20 something years for that to happen, but with enough study, it can be that way. A lot of charts talk to me, but I can see the story, and I will sit there and I will tell you what your story is. And I've never had anyone say that's not my story.
Yeah, amazing.
And sometimes it's very, very, very hard to say this is your story. A lot of people have hard lives, and so but that's my job. I look at this and I say, well, you got this to work with, you got that to work with, and I do believe that we have some degree of we can live it to its best, we can live it to its worst. You know what I mean? It's all in perspective.
Thank you. That's awesome. And thanks again. Like I said, I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I'd love to have you back again someday.
Definitely. All right. Mwah. All right. Talk to you later,
Blessings.
honey.
Take care.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Later.
Mwah. Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.